Empire. What does the average person know about it? Not much, likely. Some people just know the Mongols as a running gag on Crash Course World History, but there's a lot more to them than that. So the Mongol Empire was the largest continuous land empire in the world, spanning from the Korean Peninsula to modern-day Eastern Europe. Their empire was only beaten in size by the British Empire, which wasn't continuous, so doesn't really count. Pretty impressive that a bunch of horse-riding steppe nomads who lived in glorified teepees managed to create the second largest empire ever, taking up 16.11% of the world's surface area at its height. Pretty impressive. Surprise pop quiz. Where are the Mongols from? A. Zimbabwe, B. Puerto Rico, C. Mongolia, or D. East Calradia? If you guessed C, Mongolia, then you are correct. For your prize, you get nothing. So Mongol is not one ethnic group, but rather a term used to refer to many people groups, such as the Khalkha, Dorbek, and Bayid, that primarily inhabit the Mongolian plateau, which includes modern-day Mongolia in the autonomous region of China called Inner Mongolia. They are closely related to the Turkic people, though are separated mostly by language and religion. Turkic people groups speak Turkic languages and mostly adhere to Islam, while most Mongols speak Mongolic languages and adhere to Buddhism. These people aren't just found in the Mongolian plateau, though. There are large populations in parts of China, groups in Russia, and even Afghanistan. The Mongolian lifestyle is characterized heavily by nomadic herding of animals such as sheep, goats, yaks, oxen, horses, and even camels in the Gobi Desert. Sheep are probably one of the most valuable animals that are around. Clothing and the covering of gurs, more commonly known as a yurt, are made with their wool. Mutton is a large part of the Mongolian diet, and sheep milk is drank. Thanks, Mr. Skeletal. Horses are also one of the most important animals herded. Most of Mongolia is just kind of empty, 2 people per square mile, lowest population density. So the people that live nomadically have to get from place to place, right? So horses are used to get around. Also, during the times of the Mongol Empire, mounted cavalry was used to quickly decimate the enemy. The most famous Mongol was Genghis Khan, also spelled Chinggis, or Sengiz, or Chinggis. Around the early 11th to 12th century in the Mongolian plateau, an entity arose called Khamag Mongol. This was an amalgamation of many different Mongol tribes that joined together. Now, Temujin was a pretty important guy in this Khamag Mongol place. He was related to nearly everyone that held power there. He was the great-grandson of Kabul Khan, who was renowned for being able to repel attacks from the neighboring Jin dynasty in China. Most Chinese states were rivals with Mongol tribes, a notable exception being the Liao dynasty, who are kind of BFFs with the Mongols. The Great Wall of China was actually built to keep Mongols and other nomadic groups from raiding south into China. Temujin was the son of Yesugai and Holun. Yesugai was an important chieftain and de facto leader of Khamag Mongol for a short time. Holun was Yesugai's wife and was kinda maybe sort of abducted just a little bit by him from the man she was going to marry and forced to marry him. They had 5 children together: Khazar, Gyachun, Temujin, the only daughter, and the main man, Temujin. Yesugai had 2 other children with another woman whose name is heavily debated, named Belgatai and Better. What a player. After Yesugai died from being poisoned by a group of Tartars were Turkic people who were historic enemies of the Mongols, Temujin and his family were ostracized by their tribe and left to live in poverty. One interesting event to note during this time is when Temujin and his brother Khazar murdered their half-brother Better for what they saw as him exercising too much power as the oldest brother. Temujin began to gain a reputation for multiple deeds he performed, two notable ones being escaping capture from his father's former allies and rescuing his wife Borte from a rival tribe, the Merkits, with the help of his close friend Jamuka, his godfather Togrul, and an army of 20,000 men. He and Borte later gave birth to four sons, Jochi, Chagatai, Ogadai, and Tolu. Temujin had many other children with many other women, but these were the only ones he considered to succeed him when he died. Jamuka and Temujin began to stop associating with each other, mostly due to their differing political beliefs. Jamuka wanted an aristocratic government to rule, and Temujin wanted a meritocratic government to rule. In 1186, Temujin was elected as Khan of Mongol. This angered his former friend Jamuka, who later attacked him in 1187 with an army of 30,000 men. Temujin and his followers lost this battle, and Jamuka took over. There is barely any information available about Temujin's life after this point. In around 1197, the Jurchen dynasty of China led a war against the Tatar people with the help of Kirat and Mongol tribes. Temujin and Togrul returned from exile for this war, likely to get revenge against the Tatars for poisoning Yesugai. They both commanded armies in certain battles, and when the war was over, the Jurchen dynasty showed their gratitude by placing Temujin and Togrul in positions of power and bestowing them the titles of, which I wasn't able to find a translation for, and Wang Khan, which roughly translates to Prince Ruler or something along the lines of that. Togrul would soon follow the same path as Jamukai. The Wang Khan's son, Sangam, was somewhat jealous of Temujin's success and growing power, and conjured many plots to assassinate him. Togrul eventually distanced himself from Temujin due to his son's dislike of the man. Another event that led to the distancing of the Wang Khan and the not Wang Khan was Togrul not allowing Jochi, Temujin's first son, to marry one of his daughters. It went something like this. Togrul, Jamukai, and various other tribes that had the common enemy of Temujin allied together. During this war, Togrul died in battle and Jamuka was forced to surrender by his own men. Temujin attempted to re-ally with him, but his former friend refused and asked to be killed. He was. In 1206, after either obliterating or capitulating tribes that opposed his rule and uniting tribes that supported him, a Kurultai, or Council of Mongol chiefs and shamans, bestowed upon Temujin the title of Genghis Khan, which translates to something like Oceanic Ruler. This is considered to be the official beginning of the Mongol Empire. This new power in the region quickly gained enemies and went to war. The first of these conflicts was the invasion north into Siberia by Genghis Khan's big son Jochi. After this, the Mongols began quickly raiding south to fight the Jurchen dynasty and the Jia dynasty. After this, Central Asia was invaded. During this time, the Mongols even raided north into modern-day Russia and Ukraine. In 1227, Genghis Khan died. It is unknown how he perished. Theories range from dying in battle to natural causes. He named his son Ogadai to be his successor. At the time of his death, the Mongol Empire was in control of territory from eastern Siberia to northern Persia. Under Ogadai Khan, the Mongol Empire invaded farther into Russia, re-established authority in East Asia by destroying the Jia and Jurchen dynasty. Raids even further into Europe were also performed. The Mongol Empire continued to gain territory by conquesting. Everything seemed to be going fine. In the mid-13th century, things began to fall apart. One of the main reasons the Mongol Empire fell was that it was simply too far spread. It is difficult to control an entire empire that had territory all across Eurasia. Another reason was power struggles in the government. Mongke Khan, the fourth Khan of the Mongol Empire, died in battle with the Song dynasty. The problem was he didn't have any children, so there was no clear successor to him. This eventually escalated into a civil war between various people who wanted to seize power for themselves. Kublai Khan eventually took over as the fifth Khan. This did not stop the civil war, though, as other descendants of Genghis Khan refused to recognize his legitimacy. When Kublai Khan died in 1294, a solution was came up with: split the empire into four sections: the Yuan dynasty, which controlled most of East Asia; the Ilkhanate, which controlled the Middle East; the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia; and the Golden Horde in Russia and Eastern Europe. These divisions began to separate into completely separate entities. The Golden Horde eventually disintegrated due to wars with other Eastern European powers like the Polish Kingdom, Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and various Russian princedoms. The Ilkhanate collapsed mostly due to power struggle and was split into multiple separate states. The Chagatai Khanate faced a similar fate. Rulers would die without a clear successor, and those that saw themselves as true successors would attempt to come to power. The Yuan dynasty collapsed due to poor leadership, which led to the division of it into two entities: the fully Chinese Ming dynasty and the northern Yuan dynasty, which was still ruled by Mongols, but not descendants of Kublai Khan. Modern-day Mongolia is a pretty average country. Its economy is fairly good, the government governs well, and there doesn't seem to be that many glaring problems. It didn't get there easily, though. Mongolia was ruled by China for many years after the dissolution of the empire. In 1924, Mongolia had a revolution and became the Mongolian People's Republic, which was a communist state supported by the Soviet Union. This was a pretty bad time in Mongolia's history. Many parts of Mongol culture were cracked down upon, such as religion and traditional ways of living. In 1992, this state was replaced with what we know as Mongolia today. The Mongol Empire had huge immediate and lasting effects. For example, the modern state of Russia would likely not exist if not for the Mongols, since the various states that held power there joined together to fight their common enemy, who was the Mongols. Another example, the Mughal dynasty in India was founded by descendants of Genghis Khan. One more example, trade flourished in areas controlled by the Mongol Empire. So, congratulations for getting to the end of this video. Enjoy the credits.
That's quite big. Impressive.